to the Kennedy Events Podcast, where we feature top marketing, communications, and future of work leaders and share their biggest takeaways and insights. We love these conversations and hope you will too. Let's get started.
Hello, and welcome to the Kennedy Events Podcast. I'm your host, Paige Buck. Recent past guests include Pam Perez of the Chase Center, John Silva of Culinary Eye, and Elaine Honig of Studio 440. And today I am excited to be talking with Jonathan Stone, a self-described no bullshit event industry pro with diverse industry experience. Currently a senior marketing manager, he has more than 10 years in event production, during which he has seen it all while working at companies like Facebook, Google, Brand Fuel, and many more. And at the end of the day, he is here to get the job done well, on time, and on budget. That's what we all hope for in this industry. Before we get started and dive in with Jonathan, I'm excited to share that today's episode is brought to you by Kennedy Events. We create stress-free conferences and events, providing expert management and design for all your corporate event needs, from in-person to hybrid and virtual. And you can learn more about us at kennedyevents.com. Hello, Jonathan.
Hi, how's it going?
Going great. Glad to be here with you today. And fun how we were sharing before we got started that we've sort of like switched geographies. I've come to the Bay Area and been here for many years, and you've left the Bay Area and are in a little pocket of New England, soaking up living through a winter.
It's supposed to be 57 on Friday, but raining all day. So I don't know whether I'll take it or leave it, and we haven't had much snow, so I'm expecting that to be a burden on me in the very recent future.
Yeah, good times. Always fun, like figuring out, like I still when I experience the occasional frost here, I'm like, credit card works. You can scrape it off and it's momentary, and then you get to New England and you're like, how does this work again? Yeah, but that's not what we're here for. We're here to talk about your career, and I'm curious how you got started in this amazing industry that has us both addicted to event planning. How'd you get started?
Well, it's funny because I feel like nowadays people choose to get in this industry, whereas like when you and I probably got in this industry, it wasn't like chosen. You kind of like tripped and fell in this industry, which most people did. And they either loved it or they ran very far away from it and did something completely opposite, like sell real estate or do something that has nothing to do with it. I knew, like growing up, my two cousins were in the Hollywood industry as producers, and I wanted to be in the Hollywood industry, not as an actor per se, but like do behind the scenes stuff. So out of college, I went down to LA and I was working as a PA, project manager, just all sorts of stuff, and working in that industry, in the film industry, TV industry. I have many stories that are just say I worked on every season of Celebrity Rehab with Dr. Drew. So I have plenty of stories and fun times. And I did probably a majority of my job as a PA in LA was doing stuff that I definitely, A, was not legal, B, I wasn't getting paid enough for, and C, there's human rights laws that probably are written about it now. But you know what? As a PA and trying to make a name for yourself, you did what you did, and
all the labor practice laws that were violated in your early days.
Oh yeah, there's stories of I drove a big rig down Sunset Boulevard because the art department wouldn't move the big rig, and I had to find a place to park it. And it's like, I don't have a big rig license, nor there's that story times multiple 20+ hour days back to back to back, and and when you're getting paid $125 a day, it's good times. But
but you did all that, which sets you up really well for like all of the the can-do attitude that events require.
It does. And it's like, it's funny being on the client side and the vendor side. Being on the vendor side, I think one of the issues was I never overreacted to any sort of problem that happened. And I think like some clients at some points wanted to see more like panic and this and that, like something was getting done. But in the big picture, I was like, I've seen a million times worse. And guess what? We're going to fix it. Like there is a fix here where I've dealt with problems that like there might not be a fix for this. This person might never come back to set, or this person might have gone AWOL, or might have overdosed, or
Oh,
something. Like
dear.
those are unfixable problems. Not like in the industry that we work on. We're just like we need to find the right person that can fix it. So, it did set me up, and it did set me up for those long days and putting yourself into show mode, and you do it to get the job done. And um,
So
yeah,
how'd you leave that? How'd you get out of that and discover that events were a thing and that there could be a career there?
yeah, and it's funny because I never, again, like no one really knew about live events that wasn't in the industry already. And so I had a friend in San Francisco, and he called me and he said, you're doing project management in LA. Like, do you want to come do this for corporate events?" And I wanted to go back to San Francisco just because it was home and I missed it. And I said, sure. So I did a permalance. It was on the vendor side. I was permalancing for this company. They did a lot of gaming conventions, but they also did a lot of, corporate stuff. And I think right out of the gate, I just fell in love with the industry. And I'm just like, this is a controlled version of what movies and film and TV is. And it's just fun. Like I had a lot of fun doing it, and I did it with this company for about a year and a half, and then they didn't want to bring me on full time, and I had another like lucrative job in the TV industry down in LA, so I went and did that. But I was also sending my resume out, and I had a company called Envision Communications reach out to me and said, "Do you want to come up and work for us full time?" And I said yes. I wanted to be home. I wanted to be in San Francisco around my people. So I came and I took that job and was there for almost 7 years
Mm.
on the vendor side, doing everything from like small, intimate, white glove, minimal C-level dinners to Oracle World and Dreamforce and kind of everything in between, and got to see this industry and really like not make a name for myself because I didn't want to make a name for myself. I just wanted to like enjoy doing what I did. And I think when you try to tell, like, it's funny about our industry. I still feel like people don't know what we do.
Mhm,
like,
mhm.
like my mom 100% doesn't know what I do. Um, the best way I found to describe it is like, you've been to a concert, you've seen someone on a stage singing. Think about that talking about like the latest pharmaceutical device or the latest trend in tech or what this company's doing. So I kind of leave it at that. I don't get into too big of a detail, but yes, really fell in love with this industry and was happy that I, came from the vendor side to just show you how basically to pull back the curtain and see how the sausage was made. I think it's very important for anybody working in this industry. So
Did
yeah,
you then sort of say like, oh, having seen this whole array of possibilities, I want to choose this narrow path, or did it happen accidentally?
I mean, it happened accidentally. It was just something that like kind of, again, you fell into, and you either loved it or I wouldn't say hate it, or just didn't love it anymore. It wasn't for you, because it does take, when you talk to other event professionals, you just automatically vibe with them because you just know, and they know what you've gone through and you know what they've gone through. So I feel like it takes a special person, and that's why we keep coming back for more. It's funny because my wife does the same thing, and that's how we met, was on site. And so it's it takes those type of I know opposites attract, which it is opposites too, but like it either takes somebody that doesn't have anything to do with this industry or somebody that knows everything about this to be compatible.
Absolutely, 100% agree too. And I also met my spouse at work, though not in events. It was a similar level of mayhem. What we look like we're not freaking out, as we share that gene, whatever that is, as well. I'm curious when you talk about like, been there, done that, seen that, much of it illegal. But on the less sordid event side of things, I always feel like the most, like the learning experiences or the fun stories you tell at cocktail parties are the things that went unexpectedly wrong. But then you reflect back and you're like, but then we did this and this and this. This is how we shifted. Do you have any fun stories of things that went sideways, how you recovered from them?
A pre-pandemic, not story, but pre-pandemic, when I was just like, I never want to go to Vegas again, because it was like, we were there at least over 10 times a year for programs. And it was just like, the only good thing about Vegas is it's a very short flight. We're in Vegas for a user conference, but it was also a brand release. So they rebranded everything, and huge conference. I think it was like, 3,500, maybe 4,000 attendees. And they had this whole digital live opener with like dancers and this. And so we're rehearsing till, forever.
Yeah.
And one of the dancers cuts himself on a piece of glass that was on stage from a light. I don't know. I can't remember distinctly what it was. And of course, like everything's choreographed, everything, you have to have somebody in this spot. So the one time where I'm like, I'm kind of glad we're in Vegas, full circle. We were on the phone all night calling. I was calling people's houses. I was calling anybody. Anybody was referring me. So I'm calling people at midnight, waking people up. Finally found someone, got them a ride down to the venue, got them rehearsing till we went on. So yeah, we literally rehearsed until the program went. It went well.
Unbelievable.
From my view, everybody did it, but like stuff like that, it just happens all the time.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. I do have a fear though, working in events. I don't know if you have a fear. This is going to be horrible too. My worst nightmare in events is like when the opening or after the opening video, when the lights go on, that the truss is going to fall and hit everybody in the in the audience. I have that just fear every time that I do any sort of program.
We like to ask our clients, like, what's keeping you up at night? And then we call it, when we keep asking it as we get closer and closer to the event, and we're like, feel like everything is copacetic when they're like, I'm just deciding what I'm going to pack, or like what I'm going to wear, or, I still haven't figured out what gift we're getting the speaker. We're like, good, small problems. When I hear, I'm just worried the truss might fall, I'm like, oh, I don't know how to help you with that one. Like spiders might crawl out of the wall too, but
it's just something that I always like. I think one of my coworkers or something said that at one point, and then I'm always just like, I know it's sturdy up there. I've seen a million shows. I've done a million programs. I still have that. Like, what if something's loose up there? What if
That's what the cable locks are for. I'm like, helps that I was in theater. I'm like, I don't need to look. I know what goes into that. I'm good. But now I need to not get this idea stuck in my head.
Sorry.
But no, it's
Sorry,
okay.
I just now ruined the rest of your events.
No, but what you said really struck me was like, these sort of things happen all the time. Not the truss falling, but that something goes wrong, you have to solve for it. And what makes somebody like you successful in our field is having the resourcefulness and the energy and the inner calm to figure it out.
It's called being a masochist. It's one of those where if you're not in our industry, you need praise for everything that goes, where it's like after the show's done, I'm just like, what went wrong? Because I need to know, because I need to keep that in my back pocket, because we don't have time to have a meeting about the meeting that's going to try to solve the problem. Like, we get told what's wrong and we need to choose left or right, and it better be the right answer, and we have to go. So I always want to know what went wrong. You can tell me what went right later. Another instance like that is like when it's quiet and you're not hearing anything. Like it's like with children. It's like something's not right. Like I gotta go check on something.
I also can't relax in that moment. Like even whatever day of the show it is, you get, after everyone's gone in from lunch back into sessions on day 2 of the conference, it's like, it should be rolling downhill from here. It gets easier, right? We're starting to pack some things up. We're starting to tidy. We're starting to like think about whether we will make happy hour tonight or not. And
you mean happy hour? Like, you mean ordering a drink and room service in your room? Like that's like happy hour most of the time.
It's like my team is always like, I just want to order French fries and put my feet up the wall. Like that's the and do nothing.
This is another, why I have horrible stories. All I have is horrible stories. Another fear of mine, and my wife will hate me telling this too, is I think that when I was on the vendor side in the heavy thick of things, pre remote and pre all this, was the way I was going to die was going to be at the Venetian after like multiple, you fill in the blank hour days, this is probably TMI, but I don't care. I'm not a bath taker, but I will in Vegas just sometimes, just to like, because your whole body is just like numb. And it was going to be
And
me with
because
the
there's
TV.
no moisture in the air. So you're like,
True.
I gotta, yeah.
Yes. Anything to restore that.
Yes.
But they have the TVs in there. It was going to be me falling asleep in the bathtub. And like, that's how it was going to go. That's on
You're like,
site. So
together,
glamorous.
combined with Vegas, you're like, I hate this place. This is not where I want to go. Yeah. Yep.
But again, we love this industry, and it brings us joy. And I wouldn't want to, there's a couple other things that I want to do, but it would require me being like self-made millionaires or inheriting a lot of money, and I don't have
Yes.
that. So, but
Well, okay, so more into like the pedantic corporate side of things. Who in the companies that you've in the in-house teams that you've worked on, who do you see as your internal stakeholders, and how do you involve them in the decision making?
I mean, I keep excuse me. I keep communication lines open with everybody. So I will, I have, if we're using Slack, I'll have Slack channels with my sales, with with the brand team, with, upper management, whoever may be involved with that. And I will give them updates that way. That's why I love products like Slack, that you can have that lines of communication where it's not an email, you're not waiting on things. But I am an over communicator, just because the problems usually happen when people don't know things, or stakeholders don't get involved, and I just want them to be involved. And especially, working at bigger companies, I feel like it's funny because we work in an industry where communication is key, yet I can probably bet if you polled 10 event marketers and asked them what the number one problem is, it would be communication. So
Well, it's like, oh, we also are in an industry whose whole focus is like bringing humans together. And you're like, but you know what the problem is? It's humans. Like,
yep.
you got these people out of the problem, it'd be easy.
Before my current company, I was at a startup that was bought by Xerox. And, once I got my feet kind of wet and everything, I was just like, so we're doing this program. Who's my stakeholder? And I got a like confused, I don't know answer. And I was just like, you're telling me I don't have a stakeholder in this? I'm like, who makes decisions on budgets and what we're doing there? And they're like, you. And I go, okay, this is gonna be a long road if I'm making decisions on this, because I need it to be driven by at least sales or some sort of demand gen or whatever this program may be, so I can, be sure I'm on the right track. So I was raising my hand and talking to people. I did this at Google too, like probably talking to people that you shouldn't be talking to. I guess I used air quotes on that, just because they're very senior level, or this person, and but I just didn't care, because I needed to figure out what the hell to do.
Well, you need to identify the decision makers, and then you also need to hear, like, I'm sorry, but why are we doing this thing? And please don't tell me because we've always done it that way, or because we set aside budget for it. But what's it for? What's the goal? What are we trying to get out of this?
Oh, I mean, and the supply chain during the pandemic was absolutely crazy. One of the times that COVID was over, the same company that I previously worked at, they historically did this event, don't know why, but they wanted to do it again and had to get I think it was a 20 by 20 booth built and everything that's associated with that in 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fun.
No worries. No problem. We can make that happen.
No problem. You know what? So we recently remodeled our kitchen, and I feel like the event industry is the same thing. Throw money at it. You want to make something happen? We can do anything. I would tell clients this: we can do anything your heart desires and your mind can make up. Throw money at it.
Well, it's that triangle, right? Like, you can have it on time, on budget, in goal. And if you want to, if those things need to move, like, then you're going to have to solve for money's the fastest way to change things. Get it done.
Fastest and easiest,
Yes, if you've got it. So then when you then have to articulate to somebody else, like, might seem so obvious because we're like in it, we're 5 feet from it, but like, what problems do events solve for tech companies? Because there's so many, but sometimes it's not apparent to the would-be stakeholders or the people who are looking over their shoulder. When you say who are the stakeholders, they're like, don't look at me. What do you see the value is?
It's just such a valuable marketing tool that it can reach. I think in the beginning days of the pandemic, everyone was like, oh, virtual is the worst, virtual is the worst. And in the back of my head, I'm like, we had virtual at all of our events ever. It's the people that you don't know that are sitting in the corner of backstage that are that are broadcasting, like you
Yeah.
just met the other day. But we always had a virtual element. And I feel like in the beginning days, it was great because you got to touch an audience that you might not get to touch at a live event, or even broadcasting where we were touching APAC and EMEA simultaneously all at the same time. You'd have not 5,000 people live, you'd have 60 to 70,000 people tuning in. I thought that was like really, really cool. That obviously dialed back a lot with virtual fatigue and just the way everything goes now. But I feel like it's such a valuable marketing source and a way to get yourself out there, that's it's invaluable. Like when you see companies that are laying people off, yes, the marketing team will have a lot of layoffs, and I've seen this happen. But like if you go dive deep into that, the events marketing team, you hardly ever see people get let go, and in that specific on the client side, just because I think people now today know how valuable events are from a marketing standpoint, whereas when we both started in this industry, I feel like nobody had any clue that it was that events were that important. And I think they're realizing now that it's completely it's extremely important.
That's a really interesting perspective. I like here. I mean, I'm like, hey, may you be right. Shall, if we have a recession, may it prove that, may you be proven right. And I think it's interesting what you're saying about that virtual gave folks an opportunity to actually see and sort of be forced into seeing the value because everything was so distilled. Mm-hmm. I'm curious, when you're in-house, as you have been now, in different in-house in different houses for years.
Yep.
How do you learn? Where do you go to learn and stay inspired and get new ideas for how to deliver on something?
I am of the old school that I talk to people. I know it's weird. I know it's weird. Like, why would you speak to people? Why would you do that? But like, I have from vendor days so many friends that work in this industry that are technical directors that are out there pounding the pavement on the road 24/7. So I reach out to them and I'm like, what worked, what didn't? What's trending? What do you see happening? So I just, I pick their brains, and like I have other friends that were technical directors that are in-house now on staff on the client side. So I honestly, I schedule Zooms with them like once a month just to see what's going on and see what's new and see what's happening. Sometimes you are able to utilize that, and sometimes obviously you get what you get if you're doing, like we have not the most glorious things, but like putting together booth builds and stuff like that are, they're very, very, very important, extremely important from a marketing standpoint, but maybe not the most glamorous if you're doing a turnkey booth. Like you can't do much to make, very brand centric or exciting.
Right. Yeah. Road shows are bread and butter, like have to exist, have to happen, but aren't gonna be like wowing folks day in and day out. Right.
I mean, until you get to your like Dreamforces and stuff where you get your space and then you can build, where I've seen like, working on Cannes Lion, I've seen the craziness of crazy get built. Like, it's funny, and I've worked on Cannes Lion a couple times. When I was at Facebook, the goal was to replicate what Google did with the Ferris wheel, but not do Google's Ferris wheel. They're like, oh, that was so cheesy, that's so corny. I'm like, and here we are 5 years later talking about the Ferris wheel.
We're still talking about it. Yeah.
So
why is it even coming off your tongue if you didn't? Yeah, if you didn't really envy it in some ways. Yeah. Do you think that your peers are similar to you in that they're looking to their vendors and checking with their vendors, or do you think you're better at that I don't know that I know many of my clients who do that, for instance.
I and I don't know. I don't think so either. I think there's a lot of talented people that work in this industry, but I also think like once you're titled, once marketing is in your title, I feel like a lot of companies want you to be a marketer and not an event marketer.
Mm,
So I find a lot of time when I was interviewing for jobs, they're like, well, what's your knowledge ability of Salesforce database? And I was like, I can pull reports, but I don't know the trenches like that. And they're like, oh, that's what we're looking for. I was like, then why do you have event on this job title? Just curious to that.
yeah.
No, I think creativity comes from a lot of different ways. And I think once we work with vendors, when we have vendors, not vendors, partners, because they are partners, they do
Hmm.
more than vendor. And I use the word just because I come from that side. So I feel like I'm not disrespecting it.
Oh
Whereas
no,
like you have somebody that doesn't
so do
come from
we.
that side.
I mean, we
um,
are a vendor and we have vendors and we say vendors and
yeah.
partners and best friends and collaborators and all of the things.
And drinking buddies and crying,
Okay.
but here's a dark secret about the event industry. Doesn't matter who you are, how big you are, how whatever, there's always a moment on site that you will have tears. It doesn't matter. I don't care how tough, how this, there's always that moment. No one can, I will find it. Maybe people won't admit it, but 100%,
I'll tell you where
everybody.
I had it. I mean, I'll tell you where I had it, and it was in it was in May of this year. I mean, this is just where it readily comes to mind. I cry all the
Yeah.
time, so this one's memorable. Had a several hundred person, really. I didn't say it was interesting because it's an all hands, but it's also incredibly intimate, and it's a community of staff who really love one another. Getting together after, they're now 100% virtual. They're all coming back to company HQ. They've done all of the mandatory COVID testing so they can be together, but they're a very conscientious group. And so when they were indoors, they were still masks on. I had a little bit of an emotional breakdown midway through the day when I realized that I was having so much cognitive dissonance because everything is going swimmingly. Client is happy, attendees are happy, vendors are happy. But every time I ask them how it's going, all I can see is their Botoxed face and
Mhm.
their mask, and they're like, it's going great. And I'm like, why is everyone lying to me? Like, I'm not getting any of the visual feedback that I need to know it's going well. And I couldn't figure out what was wrong. And it was the lack of like visual tell. And I just had to go in
Yep.
the bathroom and cry for a few minutes, come out and be like, if someone tells you it's going well, you're just going to have to take their word for it.
Yeah, you just got to trust them because you can't read. But we read people really good. We know when
Yeah. And
they're,
when you're getting like this, that's all I've got is your eyes. And you're like,
yeah.
it's great. It's great. I'm like, what's going on?
So yeah, if anybody has ever told you that they haven't cried on site, that they're
That's
lying
the
completely.
lying to you. That's the calm on the surface, swim, pad, duck, paddling like hell beneath the surface. The tears are there beneath the surface. I'm curious, like heading into the new year, or at this phase in your career, like what are you curious about and what do you really want to learn?
I so as you know, once the pandemic hit and everybody flipped to virtual, everybody was a virtual event platform. Everybody switched. If you were a lighting company, you were a virtual event platform. If you were a sound company, you were a virtual event platform.
Yep.
Everybody. But there was a lot of companies doing a lot of cool shit. And I'm excited for if these companies didn't pivot completely and change their whole model, what events are going to look like, in-person events going forward. Because I feel like virtual events did all they could. There's nothing you're going to do to change
It's
the
like wrung it
game
all
in the
out of
yeah.
them. Yeah.
There's nothing, and I mean, even to the point where like, okay, you could get Michelle Obama speaking at yours, and like, I can go watch her TED talk. Like, I don't need to watch this specific live. So I'm really curious to like have these people been in their like labs making whatever they were doing like 10 times better, and like how events are going to be more futuristic, and how we're going to like use the pandemic and it to our advantage in that like let's do more visual stuff and stuff that you don't need to like talk to somebody face to face, and how can we bring that visual element to more of a human element. I'm just excited I'm excited to get back in person fully once whatever we're going to look like being back in person, and just the cool shit that's going to come about from a lot of these companies that were doing really cool stuff before, because
Yeah.
there was a lot of like innovative cutting edge stuff that was on the verge of becoming the norm at conferences, and they didn't get a chance to do that. So I really hope that is the direction that everybody goes.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think I'm curious about how you harness that big, glorious tech thing that really wows everybody or creates a new opportunity for connection, along with the more intimate things like making more space, because we always say this, but then when we deliver on the space for conversation, the space for a breather, like, let me just tap out for 5 minutes. How you actually embrace that instead of like shove it to the sidelines.
Yeah. I hope too that the audience in future events also becomes a little bit more humble, because everybody, as you would know, people take the littlest things so seriously and are troubled by the meals or troubled by this. And I hope that
Air temperature in
everybody's
the
just,
room.
I mean, you can name it and everything's wrong. And I really hope that it humbles out the audience and they're there for what the program that we built, to get knowledge, to learn, and to network with other people. So I hope that that's the main concern and not the air temperature in the room or this little minute thing that's not affecting many people.
So we talked about things that went like unexpectedly wrong. And as we start to wrap up, I guess my last question will be if you have any moments of like things that went unexpectedly right, where you're like, who knew that was going to be so popular? Or who knew that was going to be the big aha that everyone loved so much?
I don't really have those. There's so many of like the moments that went well that, again, the masochist in me always wants to know what goes wrong. But I think when you take off your badge and you just start listening to people, and when there's attendees and they're saying they're having a good time and they're really enjoying themselves, like that to me is unexpectedly when things go right, because I'm always searching for what goes wrong. And I think we do as event professionals always seek for what goes wrong to fix it, to try to be the fixers. That I feel like when you are hearing people and they're enjoying and they're having fun and they're standing up and cheering and they're interacting with whatever technology you have, I think that's when you kind of sit back and smile and be like, okay, it's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. And people are having fun, and all the hard work and attendee journey process that we put ourselves through is paying for itself. And that to me, at the end of the day, the attendees being happy is my ROI, or what my goals are for a program.
I love that. Oh, I love too that for you, it's always a happy surprise. You're having a good time? You are?
I know.
Oh, because I've got a list as long as my arm of all the things back there that really needed fixing, but
yeah.
Amazing. That's great. I share that masochism.
Like I said, it takes a strange person, but I think we're unique in our own ways, and we all get along. And it's such a small industry that like you can't be that much of a not the nicest person. I'm using my words kind of nicely now. You can't piss off too many people and still be in this industry where it's everybody's going to run into everybody once in a while and now and again, and it's a small industry, so I try to at least make people around me happy.
It is way too stressful a job to add difficult personality to it on top of everything else, for sure.
True.
Well, it has been awesome talking with you. I've been talking to Jonathan Stone, Senior Events Marketing Manager, and thanks so much for bringing all your expertise and insights here today.
Appreciate it. This was really fun.
Yeah, it was.
Thanks for listening to the Kennedy Events Podcast. Come back next time and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.